Kex drifted through the endless expanse of the outer rim in his battered salvage cutter, the hull scarred from a dozen storms and encounters that would have ended a lesser pilot. He scanned the instruments with practiced eyes, noting the radiation, spikes that curled across the sensors like invisible lightning. The cutter groaned and hissed as he steered it toward the glimmer of a derelict Terran patrol vessel that floated listlessly among the shards of a shattered asteroid field. He had been tracking it for cycles, its signature faint but stable enough to make the risk worth taking. Kex adjusted the thrusters, feeling the hum of the engines beneath his hands, and considered the value of what lay inside. He was not the sort to take without thought. But this vessel had a history. Its data cores were rumored to contain records of battles no other alien had survived, and he knew that information alone could save his clan from months of starvation and debt. As he drew closer, the cutter's shields flickered against the background radiation, and Kex's jaw tightened. He hated leaving the faintest trace that might attract other scavengers' pirates. Or worse, he could almost feel the eyes of the rim watching him, judging each maneuver and calculating if he would fail. He slipped alongside the patrol cutter with the precision of years of practice and activated the tractor beam, letting the ancient Terran craft drift gently toward the safety of his hold bay. The crew quarters were dark, the life support long dead, but the hallways smelled of ozone and metal and something faintly sweet that reminded him of the few Terrans he had met who had survived the border wars. They were strange creatures, quick to fight and slower to trust yet. When they gave their word, they carried it as if the weight of a star hung on it. Kex opened the data core chamber and slid his hands over the interface. A faint hum ran along the walls as the ancient machine recognized a foreign presence and decided to respond with creaks and clicks of cooperation. He worked fast, transferring the files and extracting anything that could be useful from the ship's logs. Every piece of information could be a bargaining chip in the rim where loyalty was scarce and trust scarcer. He paused to consider the irony that he who owed nothing to anyone was now about to owe a favor to a species he barely understood. The last time he had encountered a Terran, it had ended with him saved and deeply indebted, an obligation written on a small metallic disc, a debt marker that carried the unspoken promise that humanity would repay whatever request he might make in the future. It was a strange concept in his world. Favors were bought or stolen, not granted freely. Yet the memory of that last encounter made him feel the oddest mix of caution and hope, the kind of feeling that left him restless even in the quiet of his cabin. The transfer completed and the data secured, Kex powered down the systems and began the delicate task of detaching the patrol cutter from the tractor harness. It floated away into the void, now empty of its secrets, and he felt the familiar thrill of survival mixed with apprehension. A single wrong move and he could have lost everything. The cutter shuddered, and he gripped the controls tighter, calculating the approach to the next safe jump point. The outer rim was unforgiving, and Kex had learned that even the smallest miscalculation could mean a drift into nothingness. The stars outside were cold and indifferent, yet in their light he could see the faint glimmer of his homeworld, the distant signal of his clan yard, a place where he was expected, and where the outcomes of his decisions rippled across the lives of those who trusted him. The debt marker lay on the console within easy reach, a tiny disc of polished metal that had changed the course of his existence. It had saved him once and promised to save him again if the need arose. As he prepared to engage the jump engines, the cutter's communication console chimed softly, a flicker of life that made his brow crease. He tapped the interface and a holographic image of a Terran clerk appeared, calm and precise. She greeted him with an unusual warmth. For an alien she had never met, he hesitated before speaking the words that would bind him once more to a civilization he barely understood. "I require a favor," he said, and the weight of it settled in the cabin as the clerk's eyes did not widen or scoff. They simply registered the request and began to file the protocols necessary to honor it. Kex felt a flicker of disbelief. Humans rarely made good on promises, and yet here she was, meticulous and patient, setting in motion chains of events that would ripple far beyond the rim. He shut the console and leaned back, feeling the hum of the engines and the faint vibration of destiny as he charted the coordinates for a jump through a narrow fold in space. He thought of his clan, his people, and the fragile hope that perhaps for the first time in cycles of struggle, The universe might tilt slightly in his favor. The stars seemed to shimmer differently, and the cutter responded as if it understood the unusual importance of the moment. Keck smiled faintly, knowing that the debt marker was not just metal. It was a promise, a seed of unimaginable consequence that could not yet be measured, but would soon be felt. The rim was quiet. The radiation storm passed, leaving behind silence and cold space. Kex maneuvered the cutter with the precision of a master as he plotted the course to his hidden yard. The memories of Terran's past and the promise of Terran's present mingled in his mind. He wondered what would come of this favor, if it was a simple escort, if it was resources or protection or something far stranger he did not know yet. The stirring in his chest told him that humanity did not give lightly, but when they did, the effects were profound and far-reaching. He adjusted the shields and double-checked the engines. The cutter hummed under his touch like a living thing aware of the events unfolding. The stars outside were silent witnesses, and the debt marker glowed faintly in the corner of the console. A quiet reminder that sometimes when humanity owed you a favor, you could expect the unimaginable. And for the first time, Kex felt that perhaps the universe had tilted just enough to allow hope to bloom in the dark. Endless rim. Kex returned to the fringe of his clan, yard the battered hull of his cutter, gleaming faintly under the dim light of the nearby star. The ruins of his people's settlement stretched out like a scar across the rocky landscape, and he could see the twisted metal and shattered domes where the Syndicate had struck the last cycle. The air was thick with dust and the faint smell of burnt fuel and metal. His clan moved cautiously through the wreckage, faces streaked with soot and despair, yet their eyes flickered with determination to rebuild what had been lost. Kex knew that his arrival alone could not undo the damage, and yet he carried something far greater than tools or weapons. He carried the promise of humanity, the debt marker resting against his chest like a heartbeat that had waited years to call forth its power. He gathered the elders and the young ones together under a half-collapsed dome and held up the disc, explaining in words simple but weighty that a favor had been requested that humanity had agreed to honor, and though none could see the scale of the response yet, the future would be altered in ways they could not yet imagine. The night passed slowly with the cold wind cutting through the damaged structures, and Kex watched as shadows danced across the broken walls, and his mind raced through the logistics of what was to come. He had expected perhaps a small squad of human enforcers or a few transport shuttles, maybe a courier with supplies and medical packs, but what appeared was something entirely different. Lights blinked across the sky and distant hums vibrated through the atmosphere, as dozens of ships appeared seemingly from nowhere, hovering in formation above the yard, each vessel sleek and purposeful, a silent promise that the favor was not a token but a wave of calculated force. Kex's heart pounded as the first human envoy landed, the doors opening with quiet precision, and out poured engineers, medics, and logisticians, their uniforms crisp, their expressions calm but filled with an energy that spoke of preparation and absolute determination. They did not draw weapons nor demand allegiance. They simply began to work and speak in measured tones, organizing the wreckage and stabilizing the injured while recording every detail with scanners and drones and notebooks that seemed impossibly thorough. Kex moved among them cautiously, feeling the weight of centuries of alien pragmatism press against his mind. The humans were methodical, meticulous, unstoppable, in ways that did not rely on brute force alone. They measured structural integrity, spoke quietly into headsets, and activated portable medical bays that unfolded like flowers from crates. The injured were lifted onto cushions that adapted to their bodies. The Syndicate's propaganda machines began to sputter as the humans broadcast their presence across every frequency. Every attempt to intercept or mislead them met with careful correction and rapid deployment of countermeasures. Kex could barely keep up with the numbers, the planners, the lawyers, the advocates who poured in their data networks, mapping the yard, stabilizing supply lines, and buying out local contracts faster than anyone could respond. The Syndicate's usual networks of intimidation and bribery faltered and failed, because the humans approached this like a problem to be solved, rather than a battle to be won. By the time the second cycle of orbit passed, the yard was a hive of controlled chaos. Machines were erected with the precision of clockwork, while drones zipped through the damaged structures carrying tools and supplies. The Syndicate attempted to move against them, sending scouts and mercenaries, but Each move was anticipated and countered not with violence alone but with paperwork permits and legal challenges that tied up every resource. The humans had no malice. They had procedure, they had patience. They had the kind of quiet authority that demanded compliance because the rules themselves became an unbreakable weapon. The sky hummed with the arrival of more transports, carrying temporary shelters, laboratories, and portable workshops. Every crate that opened revealed not just materials, but instructions and algorithms that allowed Kex's people to begin restoring their homes, while the humans prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Kex walked through the yard, watching his clan in awe as the humans treated every injured elder with care, every child with patience, and every structure with attention that bordered on obsession. They spoke softly and clearly, citing treaties, conventions, and laws that seemed archaic, yet somehow powerful enough to bend the behavior of even the most ruthless mercenaries. The syndicate tried to intimidate and confuse. But the humans moved like water flooding every hole. They were unstoppable because they had thought through every scenario, every counter, and every consequence. They were terrifying not because they fired weapons, but because they commanded the infrastructure of worlds and wielded it with quiet, relentless efficiency. When the sun rose over the jagged horizon, Kex could see the first hints of reconstruction taking shape. The syndicate's control over the yard was effectively neutralized before a single human fired a shot. The injured were stabilized, the systems were repaired, and the human planners had begun the long process of auditing and mapping the syndicate's influence across multiple systems. A subtle smile played across Kex's face as he realized that the favor he had called upon was not simply protection. It was a promise made tangible, a wave of care and precision that transformed despair into possibility, and yet he knew this was only the beginning. The syndicate would not relent easily, and Kex understood that the debt marker had unleashed something far greater than he had imagined, more than a shield, more than a fleet. It had invoked the machinery of humanity itself, a force of reasoning, planning, and relentless adherence to principle that could not be easily outmaneuvered. By the end of the cycle, Kex's clan moved among the humans, learning, observing, and quietly marveling at their discipline. The humans accepted no payment, took no unnecessary credit, and treated every survivor as if they mattered infinitely. And it was here among the dust and ruins that Kex realized the true weight of the favor he had requested. It was not a mercenary strike or a ransom. It was a demonstration of a civilization that, when bound by a promise, could operate with patience, precision, and care on scales that the mind of a single alien could hardly comprehend. He touched the debt marker once more, feeling its faint warmth, and knowing that this small disk of metal had changed everything that would follow. The yard would be rebuilt. The syndicate would be challenged, and Kex's people would live to see a future they had thought impossible. And for the first time in cycles of hardship, he felt the quiet stirring of hope in his chest, that when humanity owes you a favor, you do not merely survive, you witness the unimaginable. The sun climbed higher over the jagged rim of the yard, casting long shadows across the rebuilt structures as Kex moved among his clan. The humans worked tirelessly, coordinating their efforts with a precision that seemed almost unnatural. Every crate opened revealed supplies, machines, and algorithms that began transforming the wreckage into something resembling a functioning settlement. Drones buzzed overhead, carrying medical kits and building materials, and the engineers communicated in a strange mixture of gestures and rapid calculations that made the air feel alive with purpose. Kex had seen many species work together in emergencies, but never with this level of coordination and thoughtfulness. The humans did not rush, nor did they pause. They moved like currents of a river, shaping everything in their path without causing chaos and yet leaving no space untouched. The syndicate had retreated to the edges of the system, confused and frustrated, because nothing they tried worked. Every tactic, every attempt to intimidate or bribe was met with careful countermeasures and legal protocols that neutralized their advantage without a single shot fired. And Kex realized that the favor he had called upon was far more than protection. It was the machinery of humanity operating at its peak efficiency. Kex followed a group of human planners into the remains of a collapsed dome where the clan's archives had been kept. The walls were cracked and charred, but the humans moved through it as if reading the language of the ruins itself. They placed portable scanners over the remnants of metal and stone and began reconstructing data that Kex thought was lost forever. The devices hummed softly, and projected three-dimensional maps of the yard and its surrounding space onto the air. And he watched as the humans traced the paths of the Syndicate's supply lines, the hidden depots, and the secret caches of weapons. Everything was logged with precision. Nothing escaped their notice, and Kex's people could only gape at the speed and thoroughness of the operation. He touched the det marker once more, feeling the faint hum of energy like a heartbeat, and knew that this small disk of metal had unleashed an intelligence and discipline, unlike anything he had ever encountered. Outside the dome, engineers were erecting communication arrays that blinked and whirred with energy, capable of reaching halfway across the sector. They worked alongside his clan, teaching them how to operate each piece, calibrate each sensor, and interpret the signals. The humans explained patiently and repeated their instructions until the aliens understood and could replicate the work. Kex wandered through the yards of temporary shelters, seeing the injured being treated with precision and care. He saw children being taught by human teachers in portable classrooms, the knowledge of multiple species condensed into lessons that were simultaneously practical and inspiring. The Syndicate attempted one more raid, sending a small strike team to disrupt the operation. But the humans had anticipated it. They deployed decoy sensors and redirected the intruders into containment fields that immobilized them without harm, and simultaneously broadcasted evidence of their misdeeds across every frequency. Kex felt a strange mix of awe and disbelief. He had expected brute strength and firepower. But instead, what arrived was reasoning, planning and execution on a scale that overwhelmed the imagination. By the time the second orbit passed, the yard had been transformed. The temporary shelters were sturdy and climate-controlled. The injured had been evacuated to mobile medbays, and the communications network allowed for instant coordination across multiple planets. The Syndicate's influence had been neutralized not by force alone, but by systems and knowledge that acted faster than fear or violence could respond. Kex walked along a ridge and looked out at the array of human machines, the lighting of the yard, the movement of drones, the precision of medics and engineers, and realized that humanity did not merely respond to danger. They reshaped the environment to ensure it could never succeed against them. Their methods were subtle, relentless, and incomprehensibly effective. He felt a surge of pride that he had called upon such a force, and a quiet fear at the realization of the consequences. If these humans ever decided to direct their favor elsewhere, the det marker glinted in the sunlight, reminding him of promises and debts written in a language older than war itself. Kex returned to the main hub and watched as his clan moved among the humans, learning, observing, adapting. The children replicated tasks with enthusiasm. The elders began to understand the new procedures, and Kex realized that they were not merely surviving the intervention, they were evolving alongside it. The Syndicate's hold on the region was broken because the humans had applied logic and care as weapons, and it worked better than any fleet or army could. Kex could feel the weight of what had been unleashed, and it thrilled him. The universe had tilted in his favor, and for the first time he felt an unfamiliar lightness, knowing that when humanity owed a favor, the unimaginable became possible. As night fell, the stars shimmered cold above, and the yard glowed with the lights of construction and hope. Kex walked to the edge of the settlement, looking down on the transformed space, and thought of the Syndicate and the countless systems they had oppressed. He knew they would not forget this display, and yet he also knew that the humans' methods could not be countered by intimidation or greed. Their systems were adaptable, precise, and relentless. He touched the det marker again, feeling its warmth, and realized that this small disk had changed not only his fate, but potentially the fate of every system within reach. The humans moved silently in the night, continuing their work, and Kex understood that the favor was not a single act, but a sustained force capable of altering the balance of power in ways no one could predict. The days that followed saw the yard becoming a thriving hub of activity, with systems restored, supplies arriving, defenses erected, and communication networks spanning the sector. Kex's people worked alongside the humans, learning, growing, absorbing the lessons of patience, precision, and strategy. His admiration grew with each passing cycle. He could see the difference in the eyes of his clan. They had hope and direction for the first time in decades, and Kex knew it was because of the favor he had requested, because of the promise that humanity had honored, because of the debt marker that hummed faintly on his chest and reminded him that sometimes when humanity owes you a favor, The unimaginable is only the beginning. The days of rebuilding passed quickly with humans and Kex's clan moving in a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat across the yard. Each task completed seemed to lead to another challenge. Yet the humans treated every problem as a step in a process, and not as a crisis. Drones zipped overhead carrying supplies and scanning the horizon while engineers calibrated new energy grids and medics trained the clan in basic triage procedures. The syndicate watched from the edges of the system, their frustration growing as every attempt to interfere was anticipated and nullified. Their communications jammed. By precise countermeasures, their small strike teams contained or rerouted, and Kex could feel the pressure of their presence like a storm brewing on the distant horizon. Yet he was not afraid, because the humans had transformed despair into structure, and their methods were incomprehensibly effective. The debt marker on his chest pulsed faintly as if acknowledging the unfolding scale of humanity's response, and reminding him that this was only the beginning. It happened quietly. At first a transmission, intercepted by the human networks, a coded message revealing the syndicate's plan to bring in reinforcements from neighboring systems. Kex watched with a mix of apprehension and curiosity as the humans analyzed every byte of data tracing supply lines, recruitment signals, and hidden staging areas with astonishing speed. Their response was calculated and precise. They deployed automated patrols to intercept transports, while simultaneously broadcasting warnings to potential mercenaries to avoid the system under penalty of legal and commercial sanctions. They set up decoys and contingencies with a patience that frustrated Kex because he wanted action, yet he could see the genius of it. Every human move reduced the risk to his clan, while simultaneously dismantling the syndicate's influence without a single shot fired. It was a demonstration of strategy. Intelligence and patience combined into a force that made even seasoned alien commanders uneasy. Kex joined a group of planners in the main hub. As holographic displays projected the syndicate's positions across multiple sectors, the humans moved pieces on the map as if playing a game, but each piece represented real resources, real people, and real consequences. They debated the best approach in low tones, weighing risks, costs, and outcomes. And Kex listened, absorbing every detail, realizing that humanity did not rely on power alone, but on knowledge, foresight, and the ability to anticipate behavior. The syndicate attempted to test them, sending a small strike team cloaked and armed with disruptors to sabotage a supply line. But the humans had already predicted the attack. Their drones traced the path and redirected the intruders into containment fields while simultaneously activating defensive grids and backup supply channels. Kex could not help but smile at the elegance of the operation. It was ruthless in effectiveness, yet humane in execution, and his clan began to understand the difference between strength and true power. By the third orbit, the syndicate launched a larger offensive, a squadron of stealth ships moving under the cover of asteroid fields and radiation storms. Their goal was to strike the heart of the rebuilt yard and destroy the humans' forward operations. Kex stood on a ridge overlooking the approach, his heart thumping yet calm, because he trusted the humans implicitly. They had already set up automated interceptors that used sensor triangulation to detect every ship in real time. A network of drones and defensive turrets moved in synchrony. Guided by AI and human coordinators, the attackers were forced to navigate a maze of countermeasures while supply lines rerouted, and decoys drew them off course. The humans did not panic. They did not fire indiscriminately. They guided the intruders away, immobilized the most dangerous vessels, and captured key operatives for questioning. Kex's clan watched in awe as what seemed like chaos from a distance was actually an elegant dance of planning and execution. The syndicate had never faced an enemy like this one that did not fight in anger but in reason. As the offensive was neutralized, the humans turned to Kex and his clan, explaining in calm tones the next steps to fortify the yard and the surrounding systems. They established workshops to produce local defenses, trained the aliens in the use of sensors, drones, and automated response protocols, and demonstrated techniques to anticipate enemy behavior. They also began negotiations across local systems using treaties and trade agreements to limit the syndicate's allies from offering aid. Every word spoken, every plan enacted demonstrated that humanity's favor was not temporary. It was a sustained effort capable of altering regional balance, and Kex realized that this was why the debt marker existed. It had called not a fleet or a weapon, but a civilization, capable of applying reason and principle on scales that dwarfed any singular act of violence. The days and nights blurred as humans and aliens worked side by side, repairing the yard-expanding defenses and preparing for the inevitable syndicate retaliation. The human medics treated every injury, not with haste but with attention that suggested each life mattered infinitely, and engineers upgraded every system to be self-replicating and resilient. The syndicate tried subterfuge and propaganda, but the humans anticipated each move, deploying communications and transparency protocols that countered lies and manipulation. Kex walked among his people, teaching them what he had learned, watching their confidence grow with every success. Every captured operative, every neutralized threat was a lesson in the power of structured response and measured strategy. The debt marker pulsed faintly, reminding him that this favor was not just protection, but empowerment, and he began to see the full implications that when humanity owes you a favor, it does not simply preserve life, it transforms it. By the end of the fourth orbit, the Yard had become a beacon of order and stability in a system long plagued by chaos and oppression. Kex's clan moved with newfound confidence. They understood protocols, strategies, and the difference between fear-driven action and calculated planning. The syndicate retreated to reevaluate their position, their arrogance shattered by the realization that humanity's methods were unlike anything they had ever encountered. They would not simply fight, they would dismantle influence, rebuild trust, and apply relentless logic in ways that defied expectation. Kex stood at the edge of the Yard, looking at the lights and movement below, and realized that the favor he had requested was far greater than he had ever imagined it was, a living testament to the power of a civilization bound by principle and reason, a force that changed not only outcomes, but understanding itself. And he knew with certainty that the syndicate would never again underestimate the cost of humanity's promise. The syndicate's retreat was brief and deceptive, as Keck soon realized from the continuous streams of intercepted communications that the enemy was regrouping in hidden sectors, preparing a maneuver that no conventional force could have anticipated. But the humans were ready in ways that transcended expectation. Every sensor, every drone, and every operative moved like components in a single living organism, calculating, predicting, and countering threats. Before they fully materialized, Kex stood in the main hub watching holographic projections of the enemy's movements, and felt an unfamiliar surge of confidence because he had witnessed firsthand the patience and cunning of humanity. Their favor was not just protection, it was a lesson in how power could be applied with wisdom and precision. The debt marker hummed faintly against his chest, a reminder that he had called upon a force that did not merely react, but reshaped reality. As the enemy fleet emerged from the nebula, cloaked and silent, the humans activated a series of gravitational distorters and sensor arrays that bent light and energy, revealing the hidden vessels and exposing their movements. With startling clarity, Kex's clan gasped as every ship was tracked, every maneuver countered with interventions that seemed almost impossible. The humans did not immediately attack. They waited, guided the syndicate's ships into controlled zones where they could be contained without destruction, preserving life. While neutralizing threat, the syndicate attempted to adapt, sending a squadron to break through the gravitational nets. But the humans had already anticipated multiple contingencies. The squadron was isolated and disarmed using non-lethal magnetic fields, their ships gently held in place like marbles in a puzzle. Kex felt a mix of awe and disbelief, because he had expected brute force but was instead witnessing reasoning, prediction, and coordination on a scale that surpassed imagination. The humans then turned to Kex and his clan, explaining the next steps with calm authority. They trained the aliens to operate auxiliary drones, monitor energy fluxes, and participate in tactical simulations that mirrored the incoming threats. The humans taught not just actions, but principles. Anticipate, adapt, and act with precision. The syndicate, frustrated by their failure, attempted to spread misinformation across communication channels, claiming that humanity's forces were mercenaries or manipulators. But the humans responded by broadcasting transparent logs of every action, demonstrating methods, decisions, and outcomes in real time. The clarity and honesty of the humans silenced the syndicate's propaganda and rallied local systems to support Kex's clan as allies, extending the HFY principle beyond mere military might to strategy, ethics, and diplomacy. During the second orbital cycle, the Syndicate tried a more desperate tactic, unleashing a stealth virus designed to disrupt energy grids and communication networks. The humans anticipated it within seconds, isolating infected systems, running counter-algorithms, and deploying autonomous repair drones that moved with fluid efficiency across the yard. The virus was contained and neutralized before it could cause harm, and Kex marveled at the precision of the response. Every move had been considered, every contingency accounted for, and every outcome tested in simulations that adapted in real time. The humans had turned the yard into a living fortress, not just of walls and weapons, but of knowledge, anticipation, and adaptability. Kex's clan began to internalize these lessons, their confidence growing as they contributed solutions, made predictions, and witnessed the humans' methods applied with flawless execution. By the fourth day, the Syndicate had shifted tactics yet again, attempting to use bribery, intimidation, and false alliances in nearby systems to isolate Kex's clan. But the humans had already established networks of trust, treaties, and surveillance. Detecting every attempt before it could gain traction, Kex observed as human negotiators used logic, evidence, and negotiation to dismantle every plot, turning potential enemies into neutral observers or allies without firing a single shot. The HFY principle was in full display, showing that the favor he had invoked was not momentary protection, but a sustained force capable of reshaping social, economic, and military structures across multiple systems. The debt marker pulsed faintly, a constant reminder that some favors carried consequences far beyond initial expectation. As the final confrontation approached, Kex and the humans coordinated a strategy that combined physical preparation with psychological advantage. They allowed the Syndicate to believe they had found a weakness, only to lead them into a carefully constructed network of traps, communications, and interventions. The enemy was caught off guard as they entered zones where drones, sensors, and autonomous fields rendered their tactics ineffective, while simultaneously capturing key leaders for questioning. Kex could not suppress a feeling of exhilaration, because every failure of the Syndicate was a testament to the effectiveness of humanity's intervention. The humans had transformed fear into understanding, chaos into structure, and aggression into neutralization without unnecessary destruction, and his clan began to see the universe through a lens of logic and principle that they had never considered before. The aftermath left the Syndicate humiliated, their fleet diminished, their influence shattered, and their plans rendered obsolete. Kex's clan moved among the humans, continuing to learn, adapting their methods, and beginning to internalize the lessons of patience, strategy, and ethical application of power. Debt marker pulsed one final time during the orbital cycle, as if acknowledging that the favor requested had not only been delivered but exceeded expectation. Kex stood on the edge of the yard, looking out at the transformed system, and realized that the unimaginable had occurred. The humans had not merely defended them, they had elevated them, teaching not just how to survive but how to thrive, how to think and how to act in a universe that often rewarded cunning, patience, and principle. Kex knew that the Syndicate would never again underestimate humanity, that the favor he had called upon was not a one-time shield, but an enduring force, a civilization that could act with precision, reason, and empathy across space and time. And he finally understood the true meaning of HFY, that when humanity owes a favor, it is not merely payment, it is transformation, an opportunity to redefine what is possible in a universe that often assumes the impossible cannot be achieved. The SOI system had quieted after the Syndicate's repeated failures, but Kex knew the calm was temporary, because any force so desperate and cornered would seek one final strike to reclaim lost honor or salvage power. The humans did not underestimate this. They moved with silent precision, preparing the yard and surrounding sectors with layered defenses that combined technology, strategy, and psychological deterrence. Kex watched as every alien in his clan was trained not just in combat, but in analysis, prediction, and improvisation. The humans emphasized that true power was not the ability to destroy but the ability to control outcomes without unnecessary destruction, and Kex realized that the favor he had called upon was evolving beyond protection. It was teaching his people to think, to reason, and to anticipate in ways that would make them formidable allies and defenders in a universe that often rewarded cunning over strength. It began with subtle signals, transmissions disguised as routine communications that contained coded threats and misinformation designed to confuse the humans and Kex's clan. But the humans detected the anomaly instantly, analyzing patterns, frequencies, and timing with methods that seemed almost magical to Kex. The humans traced the source of the signals to hidden satellites and rogue ships, and deployed countermeasures that intercepted the transmissions while feeding false data back to the Syndicate. Creating confusion within their ranks, every move of the humans was calculated, every possibility considered, and every risk mitigated. Kex could see the beauty of this approach, the elegance of turning aggression into opportunity. And the humans did not simply respond, they shaped the battlefield before the enemy could act, demonstrating a principle that transcended conventional warfare. The Syndicate, realizing their deception had been uncovered, escalated their efforts, sending a covert strike team designed to sabotage energy grids and communication hubs. The humans had anticipated multiple approaches, deploying autonomous drones that patrolled invisible corridors, scanning for anomalies, while their operatives blended with Kex's clan to act as observers and support the defenses. Kex moved among his people, guiding them to coordinate with the humans, learning to predict enemy movements, set traps, and execute plans that combined instinct with reason. The Syndicate infiltrators were detected and isolated with minimal disruption, their equipment confiscated, and their knowledge exploited to anticipate the next moves of the enemy. Kex could feel a mixture of pride and awe as he watched his clan apply lessons that would have been unimaginable weeks before the favor was invoked. As the orbital cycles passed, the Syndicate launched a coordinated attack across multiple sectors, hoping to overwhelm the humans' response time. But the humans had already designed contingencies for every possible scenario, their strategies layered like an intricate puzzle. Kex followed the progress through holographic projections showing every movement, every energy signature, and every defensive deployment. The humans guided his clan to participate in strategic decisions, to adapt in real time, and to learn the principles behind every tactic. They did not simply follow orders. They understood reasoning, probabilities, and outcomes. Kex's clan began to internalize these methods, moving with confidence and precision that mirrored the humans' approach. Every engagement, every neutralized threat reinforced the lesson that HFY was not just about might but about intellect, anticipation, and ethical execution. The climactic moment arrived when the Syndicate attempted to use hostages from nearby systems to force Kex's hand. The humans responded with calm calculation, setting up simulated environments that allowed the Syndicate to believe their plan was succeeding, while simultaneously isolating the hostages in protected zones with invisible defenses and autonomous monitoring. Kex coordinated with human negotiators, learning the subtle art of persuasion, negotiation, and timing as the humans combined intelligence, empathy, and psychological insight to resolve the crisis. Without a single life lost, the Syndicate's leaders were captured or neutralized, their strategies dismantled, and their influence evaporated. Kex felt the weight of the debt marker pulsing stronger than ever, as if acknowledging that the favor requested had not only protected life, but transformed understanding and capability across multiple systems. In the aftermath, the humans conducted workshops, teaching Kex's clan advanced techniques in communication, resource management, and conflict resolution. They demonstrated how to extend influence, negotiate treaties, and maintain order with minimal violence. Kex's clan practiced endlessly, integrating lessons with native techniques, and developing hybrid strategies that combined instinct with learned reasoning. The system itself became a hub of resilience and order, with energy grids, drones, and surveillance networks operating in seamless coordination. The Syndicate had left a weakened footprint, and every action taken by the humans and Kex's clan further reinforced the lesson that favor from humanity was not temporary. It was enduring, expansive, and transformative. By the end of the orbital cycle, Kex stood on the highest ridge of the yard overlooking the complex lights of activity below. He realized the scale of what had occurred. The humans had not only defeated the enemy but had elevated his clan, teaching them to think, act, and reason in ways that transcended their previous limitations. The debt marker pulsed rhythmically, a constant reminder of the favor invoked and the responsibility it carried. Kex understood that the true gift of humanity's favor was not in shielding or direct action, but in imparting wisdom, strategy, and principle to a civilization that had never imagined such capabilities were within reach. The final preparations were completed. The syndicate was neutralized and the system was secure. Yet Kex felt that the ultimate lesson was not over. He had learned that favor from humanity was not a simple transaction. It was an opportunity to grow, to elevate, and to redefine what was possible in a universe that often assumed the impossible could not be achieved. He turned to the humans, a mixture of gratitude, respect, and admiration in his eyes, knowing that the alliance formed through the favor would endure far beyond the immediate threat, shaping the destiny of his clan and the surrounding systems for generations to come. The debt marker pulsed faintly one last time in orbit, a symbol that the favor had been fulfilled in full and that the unimaginable had become reality through the wisdom, strategy, and relentless principle of humanity. The system had settled into a rhythm of stability, yet Kex knew deep inside that the final test was not over, because even in victory, the universe demanded vigilance. The humans moved calmly among the orbital platforms, inspecting energy grids, coordinating drones, and ensuring that every defense, every alliance, and every contingency was not only operational, but optimized. Kex's clan worked alongside them, now confident and capable, anticipating problems, suggesting solutions, and coordinating responses with a precision that would have seemed impossible before the favor was called upon. He looked at the humans and felt awe and admiration because their power was not just in weapons or technology, but in their ability to teach, to elevate, and to transform potential into reality. The Syndicate's remnants had retreated to distant systems, but Kex knew they would not simply vanish. They would seek revenge, attempt sabotage, or exploit any weakness the humans had anticipated. This possibility, and prepared a network that spanned multiple sectors' intelligence hubs. Autonomous patrols and strategic alliances created an interwoven web that made infiltration nearly impossible. Kex moved through command centers, learning to interpret data streams, analyze patterns, and contribute to decision-making processes. The humans encouraged him to apply intuition alongside strategy, and he realized that the favor he had invoked had grown beyond protection. It was a living lesson in leadership, anticipation, and the ethical exercise of power. As the final confrontation with the Syndicate seemed inevitable, the humans introduced a simulation of the enemy's possible approaches, and Kex's clan participated actively, predicting maneuvers, designing contingencies, and implementing defensive and offensive strategies. The simulation felt real, the tension palpable, and every decision carried weight as the humans guided them through multiple scenarios, teaching the principle that understanding, preparation, and patience were far more powerful than raw force. The Syndicate had underestimated humanity, and Kex knew that their arrogance had become their downfall. The favor had not merely shielded them from immediate harm, it had reshaped the way his clan thought, acted, and interacted with the universe. The day finally arrived when scouts reported the Syndicate approaching, moving cautiously, aware of the humans' reach and influence. Every fleet, every ship, and every operative moved with precision as, if orchestrated by a single mind, Kex watched the humans coordinate movements across vast distances, using communication networks, predictive algorithms, and strategic interventions to guide every decision the Syndicate tried. Diversion, feints, and intimidation. But the humans anticipated and countered without hesitation or cruelty. Every attempt was neutralized with finesse, the enemy bewildered by a force that did not simply react but shaped reality itself. Kex realized that the favor he had called upon was not a shield or weapon. It was a principle, a philosophy, and a demonstration of the power of reasoning applied with foresight. The climax unfolded when the Syndicate attempted a desperate strike on key planetary hubs using hidden ships and cloaked transmissions. The humans had foreseen the possibility and prepared responses that trapped the enemy in a controlled zone, disarming their fleet and isolating leaders without unnecessary destruction. Kex's clan participated directly, coordinating energy fields, monitoring drones, and contributing to negotiations that dismantled the enemy's morale and strategy simultaneously. The humans demonstrated patience, precision and calculated empathy turning aggression into understanding, chaos into structure, and fear into compliance. The syndicate's leaders surrendered, acknowledging the superiority not just of strength, but of intellect, foresight, and principle. The debt marker pulsed faintly against Kex's chest, as if to signal that the favor had reached its ultimate conclusion. In the aftermath, the humans conducted a debriefing with Kex's clan, reviewing every action, every decision, and every lesson. The focus was not only on outcomes, but on the reasoning, prediction, and ethical considerations behind each choice. Kex and his people absorbed the teachings, recognizing the transformative effect of the favor they had invoked. The syndicate had been neutralized. But more importantly, Kex's clan had evolved from a group dependent on external intervention to one capable of independent thought, foresight, and strategic action. The favor had not merely saved them, it had empowered them to act with understanding, confidence, and principle. Across the galaxy, celebrations were subdued, respectful, and reflective, because the humans had shown that triumph was not about destruction but about transformation. The systems affected by the syndicate's aggression were stabilized, treaties reinforced, and resources distributed equitably to ensure resilience and prevent future exploitation. Kex moved among his people, seeing confidence, understanding, and capability in every face. He knew that the favor had extended beyond immediate survival to a legacy of knowledge, skill, and principle that would endure for generations. The debt marker faded slowly, as if acknowledging that its purpose had been fulfilled, and the unimaginable that had been invoked had become reality. Kex looked to the humans one last time, a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and respect in his eyes, because they had done more than protect or fight. They had elevated a civilization, reshaped thought, and demonstrated the full measure of HFY in action. The humans, calm and deliberate, offered guidance for the future, teaching how to maintain security, how to negotiate with distant systems, and how to apply principle and strategy in every aspect of governance and defense. Kex's clan listened, absorbed, and internalized, because they understood now that true strength was measured not by firepower but by foresight, reasoning, and ethical execution. As the stars shimmered across the orbital sky, Kex felt the full weight of the favor invoked. He had asked for protection, but what he received was transformation. He had expected defense, but he received wisdom. He had hoped for survival, but he received empowerment. Humanity had demonstrated that when a favor was owed, the unimaginable could be achieved. The syndicate was defeated, the system stabilized, and Kex's clan had evolved into a capable, confident, and strategic force, ready to face the universe with new understanding. The debt marker pulsed one final time, a symbol of closure and acknowledgement, and Kex knew that the story was complete, the favor fulfilled, and the unimaginable realized in ways that would echo across generations. The system was secure, the syndicate neutralized, and Kex's clan had become more than survivors. They were now partners, strategists, and thinkers capable of guiding their destiny. The humans departed as quietly as they had arrived, leaving behind not only protection but the principles, wisdom, and confidence that would define the future. Kex looked to the stars, a sense of purpose filling his chest, knowing that HFY was not just an ideal but a lived reality, and that when humanity owed a favor, the unimaginable was not only possible, it was inevitable. The galaxy was quiet now, but Kex knew the calm was never permanent. Every star, every planet, every drifting asteroid carried potential for change, and humanity had shown him that vigilance, intelligence, and principle were the greatest powers one could possess. Kex moved through the command halls of his clan feeling a strength he had never known before, because the favor he had invoked had done more than protect it, had transformed his people, instilling foresight, strategy, and confidence into every thought and every action. They had learned to anticipate threats, to read situations, to predict outcomes, and to act not out of fear but with reason. The humans had demonstrated patience and subtlety, teaching Kex that the measure of civilization was not in the battles won, but in the minds elevated, and the futures shaped. The syndicate had been scattered like dust on the solar winds, and their fleets dismantled, their plans revealed and exploited. But Kex felt no triumph in their defeat, only understanding, because the true victory lay in what his people had become. They were no longer followers waiting for rescue. They were thinkers, strategists, and defenders who could shape the universe around them, rather than merely react to it. The humans had shown them that power was a tool to be guided by principle and wisdom, not simply used to destroy every maneuver, every tactic. Every lesson had been a gift, a seed planted in the minds of Kex's clan that would grow into forests of knowledge and capability across generations. The orbital stations and planetary outposts thrummed with quiet energy. The drones moved in silent synchronization. The energy grids pulsed with stability, and Kex's clan moved among the humans, absorbing every instruction and every demonstration, learning to combine instinct with calculation. To balance emotion with logic to see opportunity where others saw danger. The humans had not only fulfilled the favor, they had expanded it. They had shown that humanity was not measured by weapons or ships, but by the ability to elevate others to their own level of excellence. The debt marker that had guided him glowed faintly, as if approving and acknowledging that the unimaginable favor had been executed and the lesson complete. The final day came with no fanfare, no celebration, just the quiet rhythm of life returning to its natural pace. The humans moved to depart, leaving Kex and his people with tools, knowledge, and understanding that could last lifetimes. And beyond, Kex looked to them with gratitude, respect, and something deeper, a recognition. That favor from humanity was not simply a debt repaid, it was a covenant, a shared understanding that those who called upon it were entrusted with power, responsibility, and potential that could shape destiny. The stars above shimmered with a soft light, reflecting the quiet pride and newfound confidence within Kex's clan. He walked among the training grounds and the operational centers, watching his people move with precision and purpose, each action deliberate, each decision guided by principle. They no longer feared the unknown because they had learned to anticipate it, to shape it, to turn uncertainty into opportunity. And Kex felt a swelling of pride because the favor had done more than protect it, had redefined what his civilization could achieve. The syndicate would not return for a long time, if ever. But even if they did, Kex knew his people were no longer the same. They were capable, fearless, and guided by the lessons of humanity. As the human ships vanished into the depths of space, Kex turned to the council of his clan, his eyes bright with understanding and promise. He spoke of the favor invoked, of the responsibility earned, of the power to shape the future, not with brute force, but with intellect, strategy, and principle. And every member of the clan understood the weight of his words because they had lived it. They had trained under it, and they had emerged, transformed, stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever challenges the universe could. Present, Kex felt the debt marker fade completely, and in its place was the unshakable certainty that the favor was complete, and the unimaginable had been achieved. The galaxy stretched endlessly in every direction, and Kex walked forward, confident and resolute, knowing that humanity had shown them the way, and that their own actions would now carry the same lessons into every system, every settlement, and every star. Yet to be discovered, the favor had ended, but its consequences would echo for generations. The debt marker was gone, but its meaning would never fade. And Kex understood that the legacy of HFY was not in protection alone, but in the empowerment, transformation, and enlightenment of those who were fortunate enough to receive it. And as the first light of the new orbital cycle washed over the systems, he felt a peace unlike any he had known, because the impossible had been achieved, the unimaginable realized, and the universe forever changed. The end.